So it's been a bit of an interesting year this year. We started off the year being demonetized for not having enough subscribers, and now we're ending the year on nearly 2,500 subscribers. We're about 9 short as I record this now. So first off, a huge thank you for all your support, especially to those of you who have joined me on Discord and who are helping me on a daily basis to run the channel. I really appreciate the support. So what I want to do was wrap up the year with a review of the year, a review of the reviews of the year. Sort of. So essentially what I'm going to be doing is compiling a couple of graphs, as I normally do, and seeing what was the best and what was the worst of what I've reviewed this year. We've got about 16 CPU coolers and about 8 cases. It's been very CPU cooler heavy, trying to set up lots of test systems and that sort of stuff. So accidentally reviewing about 16 different coolers, so apologies if you're not really into coolers and you wanted to see more cases. Next year should be a better year for cases. So one thing I'm going to be doing in these graphs is using a rating system from 0 to 5. I don't normally do this. I think rating systems can be very poorly interpreted by many people, and it's not something I'm going to be doing in the future, but it's a very good tool for now for me to explain how I thought about cases and coolers and things like that in a quick way, but I will be explaining exactly what I mean by certain ratings. A lot of the stuff you're going to be seeing in these graphs aren't exactly new components, new items, new PC cases, new coolers. They're actually ones from previous years, but I have done my best to try and keep up with some of the new releases this year, and next year I'm going to be doing my damnedest to actually get onto those new releases and perhaps maybe, you know, hustle up some support from perhaps some PC case manufacturers and things like that to maybe give me some more information prior to that sort of stuff. But it's up to me to make some contacts, and I'll do my best in 2019, I promise. So thanks guys, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you in a bit for a wrap-up of the end of 2018. Cheers guys. So to sum up the best and worst cases, we'll get onto coolers just after. I've compiled a table of all the cases I've reviewed in 2018 and formed the graph you see here. I've created the following categories: build quality, finish, detail, thermal performance, compatibility, cable management, size and value. And I've populated each category for each case with a score from 1 to 5 based on my opinions of the cases. After all, the best case is rather a subjective term when taking the entirety of a case into consideration. We need to break down what the categories actually mean, and this breakdown will also carry over to the CPU coolers graph mostly as well. Build quality, finish and detail are all very subjective and are pretty self-explanatory. The ratings for these are based on my opinions during my time with the components. Thermal performance, compatibility and cable management are driven by information found through the reviews, but I've also taken the size of the case into account, since criticizing a small form factor case for not having 3.5 inch drive slots or masses of cable management space would be silly and would result in a lower score than fair, in my opinion. The size category really comes down to efficiency of space. A score of 3 essentially means the size of the case is fair with respect to compatibility, and a higher score would mean the size of the case has been used more efficiently, and the opposite would be true for a lower score. And finally, value. This is entirely subjective, since I essentially take all of the prior category results and compare them against the MSRP cost of the component. Then I have to subjectively weigh up whether I feel what is on offer is worth the cost, keeping an open mind as to whether a similar product could be found that offers similar specifications. I'll scan through the graph for the highlights and give some explanations as why I gave some score. If we're going to go and show scores, there has to be a damn good reason for why I put them in my opinion. We've had a slow year with regard to case reviews. At the top of the list of excuses is the test bench development for future case reviews. So here we have the meager 8 cases reviewed this year, which isn't a lot, but each review is between 25 and 50 minutes long and generally takes a couple of weeks to make each. There also have been a few watercool builds as well, which take an extra week or so. Starting at the bottom, I've given results as low as 2 for a few cases. The sticks took a 2 for compatibility, since there's limited drive support and the graphics card and power supply unit support is very hit and miss. The sticks also scored a 2 for value, and while that is a low score, I understand, I think it's justified, since it's a pretty steep price for a case with a small plastic side panel window, with some finish issues and a very delicate anodized aluminium coating. It's likely a 3 for many people, but I think it's hard to recommend over many other cases of a similar size. Moving on, the Q300L had a 2 for thermal performance. I found the case to perform poorly, especially compared to all the cases in this list that are running the exact same system. And the last 2s went to the size and value of the level 20 VT. I found the space in the level 20 VT to be pretty inefficiently used, and for a case with a lot of glass to see inside the case, you'd need a very large desk to comfortably lay out all of your peripherals and have this case on top to see into it. Now for all the 5s. Even though the sticks isn't highly rated all round, I think considering the size of the case, the space is used very efficiently. I would have liked to have seen some more support for another drive, but I understand that it's not very a reasonable request considering how compact the case already is. So I gave the sticks a 5 for size, but I understand some may prefer to see a 4 here. Now there's a big jump up to the next set of 5s from the RVZ03, which was a really interesting thin ITX case. I felt the detailing on the case was great thanks to the really interesting front panel. The thermals were fantastic with the direct case fan airflow over the main components, and the amount of stuff you can cram into this thing, considering its size, gave the third 5 rating to the size category. And the last set of 5s went to the Mastercase Pro 3, which I didn't officially review, but I did a livestream build in it and loved the build quality, helped with some really weighty panels. The thermals were great thanks to the large intake vents with low density filters, and there was loads of space for drives, graphics cards, and a cooler, and the cable management support was well catered for. So averaging the score out for all these cases to find out what the best and worst case reviewed on AV Techy in 2018 was, we're left with the Aerocool QS240 scoring the lowest at 3.3 and the Mastercase Pro 3 scoring 4.4 out of 5. So it needs to be stressed here that the QS240 isn't a bad case at all. It scored very average in most respects, but it didn't do anything especially well to help it score. I mean, it was only 1.1 points behind the highest scoring case. It turns out that I didn't see any really bad cases this year. There were a few cases with bad features, but nothing catastrophically bad. We've just been over why the Mastercase Pro 3 was such a good case. And yes, it is old now, but it's still a solid case, and you can pick this thing up for £50, which is a bargain for what's on offer. Sure, it doesn't come with the tempered glass side panel, but it does offer plenty of flexibility and compatibility for many system types. So much so that where I normally sell these cases to make money back for more future review stuff, I kept this one as an option for a permanent system to work for the channel in the future. It's really that good. So how about CPU coolers? Well, there are a couple of categories that I have changed from the case review chart. Cable management isn't exactly an important factor for CPU coolers, so I've got rid of cable management and size, and I've added acoustic performance and installation. As you've seen, we've had a cooler heavy year covering 16 coolers in 2018. Like with the cases, let's run through the highlights. Starting off with the low scores again, we've got a few 1 scores here and there, and these are all compatibility related issues. The Freeze 11LP is only compatible with Intel consumer sockets, so no compatibility with enthusiast sockets, which is probably a good thing, but there's no compatibility with AMD sockets either, so it deserves a 1 here. Both the K17 and AR10115XS suffer from the same problems. As for the smatterings of 2s all over the place, well, the 11LP was a very cheap cooler, which had some quality downfalls, such as the plastic mounting hardware, which worked, but was a little fiddly and clearly has a lesser life than steel hardware. There was also a lack of detail, which isn't surprising. The K17 had a 2 for its acoustics, which probably should have been a 1. Its fan was the loudest I've come across, which was caused by a loud running motor at low speeds, but it was somewhat drowned out by the noise of the air flowing through the fin stack at higher speeds. This combined with the compatibility issues and the high comparative costs of around $30, or due to the lack of accessibility in the UK, £100, which I've disregarded for the purposes of value judgment. And finishing the sentence off, which I forgot to finish earlier, this meant that the K17 scored pretty low all round. Moving on to the Thermalright coolers, the Legrand Macho RT and Macho Rev.B have installation issues. They both have a loose hold-down bracket, which for such a heavy cooler is not ideal. That coupled with the loose screws, washers, and short-preventing mylar sheet that formed part of the bracket is way too fiddly for such large coolers. And with regards to the Legrand Macho RT, that takes a 2 for value since it's just too expensive, and for pretty much any consumer CPU, it offers poor value for money in comparison to many other coolers. So that's it for the 1s and 2s, which ironically greatly describes some aspects of those coolers. Let's move on to the best features, all the 5s. Although the Thermalright coolers don't score highly overall, they are extremely compatible, offering support for pretty much every socket on the market straight out of the box. Also winning some 5s, the Noctua NH-L9i had strong thermals, especially in comparison to the slightly larger Cryorig C7. The L9i also had one of the best experiences of all the coolers in terms of installation, consisting of only some thumb screws. The Cryorig C7 also has a 5-foot installation since, like the L9i, it can also be installed in under a minute with no complications. Moving on to the D15S, that's received a 5-foot build quality and thermal performance, which was pretty much the best of the bunch, as well as acoustic performance since its fan was extremely quiet. The H5 Universal had some excellent build quality, so that comfortably takes a 5. It's also widely compatible, so there's another secure 5, and it's very well detailed with an interesting hive fin array, top and bottom caps, and a thin fan, so it takes a third 5. Next up, the Scythe Mugen 5 has superb build quality, so it takes an easy 5 there. It's also got a solid finish with some nice heat pipe caps, a thick top aluminium plate, and no sharp edges or unsightly features, so that's another easy 5 for finish and detail. And for a cooler that's smaller than a fair few coolers we've tested like the H5 Universal, it threw a good few punches, resulting in one of the best thermally performing coolers I've tested. And finally, the Dark Rock 4 takes 5s for build quality and detail thanks to the large top cap and varying fin layout, but it doesn't take a 5 for finish since my experience with the cooler left me with the impression that the black coating is fragile and any damage it takes will stick out like a sore thumb. However, it performed very well thermally and acoustically, so I've got no qualms with giving it another 5 in those categories, and it's widely compatible with many sockets, so it should fit most people's builds. So I completed the entire video, I rendered it, I was getting all of the links ready in the video description to, I let people link through to those to see what the reviews were like, and I came up with one extra case in the cases section than I was expecting. And I completely forgot to add to this video the Metallic Gear Neo G Mini, which is of course a huge oversight on my part. So needless to say, I nearly had a heart attack. So first thing I did was add the Metallic Gear Neo G Mini to the charts, to the graph, and I gave it the following score. So I gave it a 5 for build quality, a 5 for finish, a 4 for detail, not an awful lot of detail going on, but it was pretty decent. I gave it a 3 for thermal since it performed pretty badly. I gave it a 4 for compatibility, a 3 for cable management since it had a really quite small cable management space but some decent cable management holes, 4 for size, relatively efficient on size, and a 3.5 for value because it's quite expensive for what you get in a sense. It's decent but not amazing. So it came out as a total of 3.9, which isn't anything special. It's still 0.5 away from max, and it's 0.8 away from the minimum, so it's, better than average for this score. So needless to say, I don't need to do any changes to the video just to add these thoughts. Sorry for the confusion, sorry for the mix-up, and I hope that hasn't affected anything overall. So one thing I actually forgot to do to add on to the end of the script is the sort of wrap up to what was the winner and what was the loser out of the CPU coolers. Now obviously the winner was at the top, it was the Dark Rock 4, and the loser was at the bottom, it was the Arctic Freezer 11LP. Now the 11LP was just a cheap sort of it'll do the job cooler, nothing, not highly compatible, not high quality, very cheap, so it's, not expected to do very well overall. But the Dark Rock 4 is more interesting because I was highly critical of that case. It had some design flaws that I thought were, a bit of a pain, but if you sort of objectively break it down into categories, it's actually a really good cooler, and if you use it, very sort of prescriptively, then you do get a good result. It does have its problems though. The finish was nice to look at, but not nice to deal with on a regular basis, and for me, it was just awful and I couldn't deal with it, hence why I went with the Scythe Mugen 5 for my 160mm or lower cooler for case testing systems, or case system test. Case-wise, we saw the Master Case Pro 3, an old case, win it, but it is a very good case, I stand by that, and the loser was a QS240, and now, I say the loser was a QS240, it's just in that list. I mean, if I reviewed an extra, 8 cases to make it 16 the same as I did coolers, likely I would have found, a good quarter or a third of those would be underneath the QS240 as bad cases. So it did well, just imagine that the graph was sort of kneecapped or cut off at the knees way too early when I should have been doing a lot more case reviews. Anyway, it's a really good case regardless, but it just didn't meet a lot of the criteria of a really good case, just a good case or okay case. The Master Case Pro 3 was a winner, but one thing that was interesting in that system, and graph, much like the Dark Rock 4, was the Q300L. Now, I was again very highly critical of that. There were some design features there that I was just confused by and didn't make a lot of sense, but it ended all round on the graph as a good case, not an awful case, not the worst, nowhere near the worst, just a good case. So I was critical of it, but breaking it down to the objective and the subjective categories that I created, it did well. So I just want to say that, yes, although I have problems with things, I can look and see the wood from the trees, as it were, and actually understand what is good and what is bad, but it is also up to the viewer of any of the reviews that I do to understand, you know, what is good to them that I say and what is bad to them that I say. A lot of people lose sight of that, but I can imagine most people watching this video have actually, you know, got a half a brain on their shoulders, can actually work these things out for themselves. They don't have to be spoon-fed the answer they want to be able to see the information they want. Anyway, so one thing I want to say is that I haven't got any Amazon affiliate links in the video description of this video. Now, it's been an easy thing to do, but I want to be pro-consumer here and say in the video description are all of the reviews that I've done on all of the components you've seen in this video, all the ones in the graphs. Now, that is, as far as I'm concerned, pro-consumer. It gives you the information before offering you Amazon affiliate links, which will be in the video description of each of those videos, and you can go through to those if you want to pick them up. But please check the videos out. Check other reviewers' things out before you end up sinking money into something that, if it's expensive, would be a bit of a pain to lose the money out on something you perhaps didn't want. So anyway, thanks for your support, guys. Let's hope we have a really nice 2019. Let's hope things don't go bad, we don't get demonetized, and we can all see, I think, a lot of the potential issues coming up in 2019. Let's hope we avoid those, and let's hope we have a really good year. I don't think I'm going to be getting another video out before the end of the year. I will get one out probably just after the end of the year, or at least I'm going to hope to do that. I'll work through a little bit on this holiday break to bring something a little bit special, something I've been working on for about a year now. I hope you appreciate that. But a huge thank you and appreciation to all the subscribers who regularly help me with this channel, especially all of you on Discord who help me on a daily basis in support, just answering questions I have, queries I have about which direction I should take the channel in. And if you want to join those people and you've been watching this channel for a while, please come over, join the Discord. We chat pretty much every day, or if not every other day, and I'll throw up something with a question or a query, something you can throw your thoughts down onto, and I'll be highly appreciative of that support. So thanks, guys. I'll catch you in 2019. I hope you have an excellent Christmas or whatever sort of festive, religious or otherwise celebration you're celebrating this year, and have a great new year. At least a great new year. Not the Chinese New Year, it's a completely different time. Anyway, have a great new year, and I'll catch you in 2019. Bye-bye.